I always do that.
No clapping and snapping. Come
I'm
on.
a rider. Every time that I go up past midnight, I swear I get higher. Swear I gotta get higher now. I'm a night rider. Every time that I give what I got, I supply that fire. I supply that fire, man. I'm a night rider. Every time that I go up past midnight, I swear I get higher.
Uh-huh.
Swear I gotta get higher now.
Yeah. What is going on, bookworms, and welcome back to another episode of Bookmarks with Bump. It is I, your host, Bump, aka the back-to-back bronze bomber. Coming off the heels of another successful race. I didn't really set a goal for the 5K that I ran in last weekend. It was more of a spur-of-the-moment thing. Never have I once gone back-to-back on races week to week, but that is what I did, and I conquered it indeed. If you follow along with social media, you'd see that I took home the bronze overall in that race, which is the best I've ever placed in any race. I've been top 10 quite a few times, but never once have I taken away an overall medal. So that felt great. Gold in my age division, bronze overall, and I brought my pace down a few seconds from the last race I ran in. This is a new PR for me. My previous personal record for a 5K was 22 minutes and 29 seconds. I shaved off 9 seconds and finished in 22:20. My best time in a 5K yet, and only getting better. This was very dedicated work, and I'd say that the most dedication came over the course of the last 8 weeks, really going through that training schedule, honed in different practices for me, and helped me really improve as far as stride, as far as speed, and as far as endurance goes. The 10K was the ultimate challenge for me, just trying to see what I could withstand or withhold at my certain, or at my current weight and body type, and I surprised myself. Over the course of the last few years, I've been more lackadaisical with running than I had been previously, and this just lit the fire all over again. The next goal moving forward is ready to be attacked, and it takes a little bit of meticulous, a meticulous approach is what I'll be taking moving forward. I could put running on the back burner for a couple months here. Throughout the winter months when most people bulk up, I will be cutting down, and I'm just putting myself and my body in the right position to be able to achieve the goals that I have set out for myself. Next race I'll be running 7-minute or less miles. That is the ultimate goal that I will strive to achieve. I went out yesterday for a run. Legs feel really good. I'm definitely not as sore as I was after the 10K. I feel like I'm in prime racing shape, and I'm very excited. I'm very happy with the outcome, and I'm very excited about the future moving forward as far as those goals go. So I'm happy to report back to y'all with success. It was another successful racing season, and that's all I could really ask for, is when the race season comes around, I'm ready to pound pavement, and that's most certainly what I did. And looking forward to next spring already. I'm and let's touch on that for 1 second, because I think that's what a lot of people need in life, is something to look forward to. It's very important to be present and stay in the moment and be where your feet are. But it's also important to have a goal to look forward to, have a destination or a vacation or just anything at all. Because times get tough. It's inevitable that you're gonna experience the ebbs and flows of life, as I call it. Times do get tough. No matter how much you're able to deal with it, whatever it is, times do get tough, but give yourself something to look forward to. And you can remain in the moment, of course, and embrace the suck, embrace the love, things that I've mentioned before. But it is important to have something that your sights are set on as well. Something attainable, something achievable, and something realistic. Something that you can practice frequently and something that you can move forward with. Moving forward into the spring, I'm very, very excited to see where I will be at that point. We are entering the dark times. Today is November 21st, and this is like the first yuck weather day, I'd say. It's about 45 degrees, it's raining, it's miserable weather, but that gives me something to look forward to, because when the spring breaks, I will be right where I need to be. 4 or 5 months from now, I expect myself to be down about 20 pounds and faster than ever. This year, I got faster than I've ever been. And if I could do that where I'm at now, imagine where I'd be if I'm in a more comfortable position, where I'm not putting as much pressure on my knees. Each pound of body weight you hold provides another 30 to 40 pounds of pressure on your joints when you're running. That's critical. So I lose 20 pounds. Imagine how much better my knees will feel after a run. And I don't really experience a lot of soreness or anything like that in the knees or joints when it comes to running, but I just think that that's going to really help me perform better. And that's what it's all about. And the better you perform, the happier you are. And let's dive into some topics, man, because we didn't do any topics last week. Still a great podcast, in my opinion. But I mean, it's my own podcast. Should I really be saying that? I got to stop tooting my own horn. But nonetheless, it was still a good podcast, but didn't touch on any topics. And I've had some that I wanted to get into. One of which being Jordan Peterson and Happiness. He has a specific way to achieve happiness. This was something that Ho-Sun Chung put out. The man who heals what doctors can't. Jordan Peterson. It's impossible to be depressed after studying his ideas. Here's his 6-step protocol for a lifetime of happiness. Meet the man who made philosophy go viral. His lectures get more views than Netflix shows. Students wait hours to ask him questions. His critics admit his ideas change lives, but his biggest discovery came unexpectedly. Peterson noticed a pattern in his clinical practice. Say that 10 times fast. Peterson noticed a pattern in his clinical practice. The patients who recovered fastest weren't the ones who got the most therapy. They weren't the ones who took the most medication. They shared one unexpected trait. They had a mission, a purpose beyond themselves. Depression, Peterson found, isn't just about brain chemistry. It's about meaning. And he developed a protocol to find it. Number 1, the lobster principle. Stand up straight, pull your shoulders back. Sounds too simple? Science says otherwise. Just like lobsters, our posture changes our brain chemistry. When we stand tall, we feel powerful. When we feel powerful, we become powerful. But there's a deeper truth. Our bodies aren't just carrying our minds, they're creating our reality. Peterson found that physical confidence, like a lobster asserting its territory, actually rewires our neural pathways. Yet this only works when combined with the second principle, the self-care paradox. Watch someone with their dog. They never skip walks, never forget meals, never ignore signs of illness. Now watch how they treat themselves. Peterson noticed this pattern over and over. We treat others better than ourselves, so treat yourself like someone you're responsible for helping. Imagine your best friend came to you with your exact situation. What would you tell them? Which is, before I continue on with the thread, this is something that I had been guilty of, and I still am from time to time, of course, for pretty much my whole life. I've been, and here I am on this podcast, I've been good at giving advice, but I've never been good at taking my own advice, and that's an issue. Who knows where I'd be if I had listened to everything I ever told anybody, but I'm here nonetheless. And I think this goes into kind of what, I'll touch on that at the end, but it goes on to kind of explain how I am today. Number 3, the progress protocol. Social media has created a comparison crisis. We measure our raw footage against everyone else's highlight reel. Peterson's antidote: a radical shift in perspective. Stop competing with others. Start competing with yourself. Track only 2 points: who you were yesterday and who you are today. This simple shift transforms anxiety into growth. But first, you need to master your environment, which leads us to number 4, the order algorithm. Clean your room became Peterson's most famous phrase, not because it's profound, but because it's true. Before you try to change the world, prove you can create order in your immediate environment. Start small, start now, do this. Master what's in front of you first: your space, your schedule, your basic commitments. Peterson found something fascinating. People who could create order in their rooms could eventually create order everywhere. But this requires facing what scares you. Number 5 is the courage equation. Pardon me. Growth happens at the boundary between order and adventure. Peterson's prescription: face one fear each day. Try something new. Have the difficult conversation. Take that calculated risk you've been analyzing. Each victory rewires your brain. And lastly, the story solution. Your life isn't happening to you. It's a story you're telling yourself and others. Peterson discovered something remarkable about people who share their journeys with the world. They don't just heal faster, they create meaning from chaos. By articulating your struggles and victories, you transform. Random events into purpose, suffering into wisdom, experience into legacy. But in our digital age, this has even deeper implications. Your story can reach millions. Every challenge you've faced, every insight you've gained, it's not just experience. It's valuable content that builds trust at scale. The primary benefits are psychological, but the other benefits? The right people find you. Customers resonate with your mission. Hires believe in your vision. Your story becomes a beacon, attracting opportunities while you sleep. It's the truest competitive advantage this generation can offer. And if you want to start sharing your story, it goes into an ad for Ho-Sung Chung's company. No free advertisements on the show. Sorry, Ho-Sung, but great thread, and a lot that I want to touch on here. One being the story solution, just because it's most recent and there's recency bias there. The story solution is big for me. I find the right people in my life by being open and vulnerable. That's how I found this platform. That's how I continued forward with this platform, was the fact that I knew I had a message to give. And that goes into being bigger than yourself, right? The self-care paradox, or even beyond that. The self-care paradox is really what my lifestyle and routine is. It's not something that I put a lot of work into. It's so structured into when I wake up now that it's just second nature. The progress protocol is like I'm looking at myself always, like comparing my success to my success. I'm not looking at the winner of the race and saying, man, I'll never get there. It's up to me to get there by competing with myself and beating myself. I can't race another person and expect myself to keep pace with them. I know what my pace is, and I know that I have to beat that little by little. Finding order, finding courage. This is all... If you have to rewind this and listen to it over again, I really suggest you do. This is a great thread. Track only 2 points: who you were yesterday and who you are today. It slows things down, right? Because you think about, and one thing that I think about often, honestly, is who I was 6-7 years ago. That is a massive amount of progress, and sometimes that's a lot to take in. So if I look at yesterday and I look at today, that gives me more of a realistic, what's the word I'm looking for? It's more of a realistic pool to pull from. This is a great thread. It's so interesting to me how Jordan Peterson can be this guy who's just marred with controversy because, he's just, I don't know, telling it how it is, really. But no, this guy, he's very profound with the things that he says. And having a background in the life that he does, it makes sense to listen to somebody like this. You can come on, and of course, you can listen to me, and that's really what I tell. That's my story. That's my story solution. I'm here to tell the story. But in here, we were talking about something outside of yourself. Before the self-care paradox, we go through what you're doing for other people, having a mission bigger than you or outside of yourself. And I think that's really what keeps me going in the way that it does. I think for myself when it comes to my goals, but majority of the time I'm thinking of other people and what I can do to help them, be there for them, guide them in the right direction. Oftentimes, people are going to have to do it on their own no matter what. But more often than not, that's what I'm focused on. And that's my main focus. And just making sure that the people I care about the most are in a good place. Are we in a good place? We have elected a new president recently, a new president who was an old president. The only other president to do that was Taft, I believe. Donald Trump becomes the 47th president. And in honor of Donald Trump, I wanted to go through some of his old classic tweets. I found a thread here from Uncommon Sense that says, I kind of forgot how funny Trump's tweets are. Here are some bangers. Number one is, every time I speak of the haters and losers, I do so with great love and affection. They cannot help the fact that they were born messed up. I don't get what that means, Donald. Number two, why would Kim Jong-un insult me by calling me old when I would never call him short and fat? Oh well, I try so hard to be his friend, and maybe someday that will happen. I mean, this guy has got to be one of the pettiest guys in the world. It's freezing and snowing in New York. We need global warming, he says. Well, if Hillary if Hillary Clinton can't satisfy her husband, what makes her think she can satisfy America? This was a retweet, but it still made the list, and it's great nonetheless. All right. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un just stated that the nuclear button is on his desk at all times. Will someone from his depleted and food-starved regime please inform him that I too have a nuclear button, but it is much bigger and a more powerful one than his, and my button works? What a big dig at Korean manufacturing. Way to drive jobs to America. I see what Trump was doing there. It's more than just insulting. This is crazy, honestly. I will be announcing the most dishonest and corrupt media awards of the year on Monday at 5 o'clock. Subjects will cover dishonesty and bad reporting in various categories from the fake news media. Stay tuned. I don't remember if this ever happened. This was back in 2018 as he was our president. A lot of these are from his first term of presidency, which is crazy that we had a guy this unhinged just kind of spewing off at the mouth. But I think that's what makes it so interesting. Job market was great. Housing costs were better than they are. Everything was better than where it is currently during his presidency. So, I mean, it's so interesting to see such a conflicting and just this guy is just walking conflict, right? So he goes on to say, wow, former AG Bill Barr, who let a lot of great people down by not investigating voter fraud in our country, has just endorsed me for president, despite the fact that I called him weak, slow-moving, lethargic, gutless, and lazy. Based on the fact that I greatly appreciate his wholehearted endorsement, I am removing the word lethargic from my statement. Thank you, Bill. MAGA 2024. If anyone is looking for a good lawyer, I would strongly suggest that you don't retain the services of Michael Cohen. We should be focusing on beautiful, clean air and not on wasteful and very expensive global warming bullshit. China and others are hurting our air. This was before his presidency. This was 2013. Another one from 2013. If you are lucky enough to catch a knockout assaulter before getting slugged and you carry a gun, shoot the bastard. This was like in New York City in this time. I remember this. This was a game and a trend. People walking around just sucker punching people. I can get behind this. We got 5 more. Why are people upset with me over President Obama's birth certificate? I got him to release it, or whatever it was, when nobody else could. Donald Trump pulls a lot of attention. And so if he's telling people not to retain your services, that's a bad look for you and your business. 26,000 unreported sexual assaults in the military, only 238 convictions. What did these geniuses expect when they put men and women together? So, there's a lot that goes into there. I would really hope for... You know what? This actually just ignited me to go off a little bit. After I ran in my first half marathon, I thought to myself, man, I am so full of service right now. I wanted to do, and I still have, just do things for others constantly. And I thought, what greater honor would that be? What better place would I have than in the military? And at that point, I was, 25 years old, in the best shape of my life. Well, second best shape of my life. I'm probably in the best shape of my life now. But I was turned away due to, quote, character issues because of my past, because of my arrests in the past. And, I like to think that we have great characters in our military. Because of that, that's something that they look at when you're enlisting. I'd like to think we're better than this kind of activity, but unfortunately we're not. But I don't think that's what happens when you put men and women together. I think that's what happens when you put nasty people around vulnerable people. But nonetheless, we move on. I hope we never find life on another planet, because if we do, there's no doubt the United States will start sending them money. If Obama resigns from office now, thereby doing a great service to the country, I will give him free lifetime golf at any one of my courses. What an offer. In addition to winning the Electoral College in a landslide, I won the popular vote if you deduct the millions of people who voted illegally. After Friday's Twilight release, I hope Robert Pattinson will not be seen in public with Kristen. She will cheat on him again. This is from 2012, and I didn't know he was a Twilight fan. That's interesting. The more you know. So, shout out to Donald. So he's since been back on X or Twitter ever since Elon Musk took it back from the media. It was controlled for a while there, and it's good to see. It's good to see a platform with free speech. I will say that much. But this is the one thing about Trump that I really dislike. I don't think it's a good idea for our leader to be out there spewing off at the mouth like that. It's not a good look. We're supposed to be dignitaries. We're supposed to be what is that word? Not politically correct. Like, politically correct is something that destroys people, but you have to operate with a little bit of diplomacy. You have to be diplomatic. You have to appease the people that you're talking to while not stepping away from what you believe in. This is a man who very strongly speaks for what he believes in. That's great. That's what a leader should do. But you shouldn't insult people along the way. There is a certain balance that you have to achieve when it comes to being a leader. Being too diplomatic will cause you to lose out on opportunities, miss out on situations, and not stand your ground. And being too forward will push people away from you. We need to find that balance. Donald Trump Is he a good leader? I believe he is. Is he a good example? No. And I think the best thing for us to find is somebody who can lead this country while being a good leader and being a great example. Somebody like Jalen Hurts. In my mind, somebody with the disposition of a Jalen Hurts would be our best example of what a leader could be. Maybe I'm just too big of a football fan. Anyway, let's ball out.
Here we go! Buck, here we go! Here we go! Here we go! Here we go! Yeah, here we go! Here we go!
Buck. It is Ballin' with Bump. You've made it through the first half of the podcast, and here we are into the back end. Thursday night, another showcase of a divisional matchup between the Steelers and the Browns. The Steelers are 3.5-point favorites in Cleveland at the Huntington Bank Field. It's about 38 degrees out there with a bit of drizzle and rain. Don't expect Jameis to throw for 300 in this game like he did last week again. Last week's Thursday night game, I was correct with my prediction of the Eagles winning. They did it again on a late game surge. Jake Elliott went 0 for 2 to start the game kicking, which is kind of a new thing to see. Nick Sirianni was being lambasted because of going for it on fourth down constantly. What's going on here? If you listen to the Pat McAfee show, he seems to think that Jake Elliott might be a little banged up. And if I'm going to listen to anything a kicker's saying about a kicker, I'm going to take it as bond. So you got to look out for that. Maybe he's not feeling the best. Maybe he's got a little hitch in his giddy up, whatever it is. He's not performing the way that he typically would, right? So this game got off to a really petty start, and it was chippy all the way through. These two teams were vying for the number one spot in the NFC East, and it ended up with the Eagles having a late game surge in typical fashion, not scoring in the first quarter, making a field goal in the second, and making a field goal in the third before they exploded in the fourth quarter, and especially late. Okay, so first of all, Jahan Dotson gets the first touch of the game. Former Commanders wide receiver, and after he gets tackled, he gets held down by a Commanders defender. Not really a nice thing. Really seemed to be like there was a bit of pettiness there from Noah Igbenegbe, who ended that game with 4 tackles, 6 total tackles, 4 solo tackles. He really showed out. But it was Brian Robinson getting the party started early. In his first game back, he had 16 carries, 63 yards, and a touchdown. He got that first touchdown on the Commanders' first drive. But other than a late game Zach Ertz touchdown, Jaden Daniels was not himself. He had 10 incompletions in this game and an interception that he ended up throwing. With Reed Blankenship nabbing that interception there in the fourth quarter, that was the tide that changed this game. You look at the play-by-play, you look at the recap, you look at the scoring summary. There was 2 touchdowns within seconds of each other, 20 seconds to be exact. In the fourth quarter, when the Eagles really started to take off, they were down 10-6. And then Jalen Hurts gets the tush push in. They take the 12-10 lead. The Commanders aren't doing anything with the ball. The Eagles would punt back a few times as well. And then it was a Saquon Barkley rush that just broke out. He had a 23-yard rush to put them up a touchdown, 19-10. And then Saquon would take that next carry after the Reed Blankenship interception, 39 yards to the house, and just kind of rub it in the NFC East face. Like, he's played in this division his whole career. He's never played like this before. He's playing the best football of his life right now. And you can't help but be happy for the guy. Saquon had 2 receptions for 52 yards and 26 carries for 146 yards. In those touchdowns, that was the moment that the Eagles won. He's carrying this team into the end zone, and he's carrying this team to victories, and they look as good as they looked the year they went to the Super Bowl. I don't see a late season collapse coming from this team, especially now that they have their complete offensive line in. The first 9 games of the season, they weren't playing with their total offensive line. So they moved to 8-2, take over the NFC East throne. And who do they play next week? They play the Rams. So a team that the Patriots almost beat, which means that I think they'll do well. Let's get back into the Steelers and the Browns playing on Thursday Night Football. The Steelers as 3.5-point favorites doesn't really surprise me because the Browns have not lost a Thursday Night Football game since 2015. They are going on 10 years of undefeated Thursdays, which is good for them, and they definitely needed it. Last week, the Browns played the Saints in a game where they kind of got taken advantage of by Darren Rizzi's newly led New Orleans Saints. Last week, Jameis Winston would throw for 395 yards, almost totaling 400 yards. They're giving him 46 throws right now, pretty much throwing about 40 times a game. And he's not as bad as he was in Tampa. The fact that it took him to get to the Browns to have a starting opportunity is kind of crazy to me, but Taysom Hill found the end zone early in this game to give the Saints a lead underneath the Rizzi era, which is another interesting stat, right? Because Taysom Hill has been that utility guy. They gave him a mega deal a few years ago, and then the last 2 seasons, Dennis Allen was not using him at all. But they go up early, and then Jerry Jeudy and the Browns match on an 89-yard catch and run, which is Jerry Jeudy is becoming the ultimate weapon for the Browns. Good for him for getting out of Denver what he thought was a hellhole for him. I think that was more of the emergence of Cortland Sutton than anything. I wouldn't say anything bad about his abilities. He's a great, phenomenal athlete. I'm not Steve Smith, so I can't really say much there. But Marquez Valdez-Scantling would kind of bounce back on that with a 71-yard touchdown reception of his own. Dustin Hopkins missed a bunch of field goals in this game, which is kind of the story to see here. And you're not going to have a lot of success doing that. He went 0 for 2 on field goal attempts throughout this game. They tried to go for 2 on that first touchdown, which was not a good look, but it doesn't matter anyway. He would miss extra points. He would miss field goals. He would miss 4 field goals altogether. There was a sequence here at the end of the game. He missed the kick. The refs had called a defensive penalty, though, giving the Browns a 5-yard advancement, not a first down. So they would kick it again, and he would miss that kick again. Jameis and Jeudy would continue their streak of magic through the rest of the game, and Jameis Winston would find Elijah Moore. He would tie the game with a David Njoku 2-point conversion, but then Taysom Hill broke free out of the defensive pile in the fourth quarter on a 33-yard rush to give the Saints a 21-14 lead. And then they'd just ride Alvin Kamara all the way down there to get Juwan Jordan a touchdown. Alvin Kamara finished this game with 4 receptions for 22 yards and 16 carries for 67 yards. He had a pretty formidable game, but none other than Taysom Hill emerging in this kind of, I don't know. He was like, for whatever reason, he was the weapon in this game. And that makes me think that in this Steelers game tonight, you might see a lot of Justin Fields coming through and making magic happen for the Steelers. I'm not confident in the fact that there's going to be a good wide receiver showing in this game. Cleveland is going to have to ride Nick Chubb and Jerome Ford to have success, especially against the Steelers defense, which is just so formidable, such a tough team. But Taysom Hill last week was able to carry the ball 7 yards for 138, or 7 carries, for 138 yards, as well as tack on 8 receptions for 50 yards. So they kind of pulled that utility tool out of the belt and said, let's see what we can do here. And the Saints win and advance to 4-7, win 2 games in a row. Just like how they started the season, 2 games in a row, 7 straight losses, fire Dennis Allen, bring in the special teams coordinator to be your coach, and then bingo, you got a team all of a sudden again. The Saints seem to be fired up. 4-7 going in. to their bye week. And then they play the Rams right after the Eagles get through with them. So we'll move back to the Steelers and Browns game tonight, because that was another game that I highlighted last week, the Steelers and the Ravens. Derrick Henry coughed up an early fumble, causing the Steelers to get out to an early field goal lead. The Steelers kicked a nice field goal. Oh, God. They kicked a nice field goal to get open to an early lead. Chris Boswell, a 32-yard field goal. The Ravens put teams on their heels with their ability to run, and their bootleg plays can gain a ton of yards with a focus on Lamar Jackson and the backfield of Derrick Henry, Patrick Ricard, Justice Hill. Whoever you put back there, it's kind of a winning formality. Justin Tucker was missing kicks uncharacteristically. They get down into field goal range and they miss a kick. The Steelers' defense was doing dirt, characteristically, in a chippy, hard-nosed AFC North matchup. These teams hate each other, and you saw it after almost every play. These guys were going at it constantly attacking each other after the play was over. Derrick Henry would then put it on his back. With help from Isaiah Likely and the Ravens, would push Derrick Henry into the end zone for the first touchdown of the game about 2 minutes before halftime. And you know, this is one of those games where, like, you see it as exciting because it's the Ravens playing the Steelers, but the scoreboard never really tells an exciting story. The Steelers end up punting back, and so the first play, Patrick Queen forces a fumble on Isaiah Likely, who initially bobbles the pass and allowed the play to be held in slow motion. So Isaiah Likely takes in this catch. He doesn't take it in completely or cleanly. Patrick Queen, the former Baltimore Raven, comes up and snags it. When he ripped the ball, it flew up into the air and caused confusion, plus a skirmish that resulted in about 60 flags being thrown on the field. Macari and Minkah Fitzpatrick were face mask to face mask, screaming at each other. And the Steelers got a chance at a Pickens 50-50 ball. It was defended well by Tre'Davious White, but they still had a field goal to end the half 9-7. That's pretty much all they needed. They had 3 field goals in the first half. The Ravens continue to bend but not break. On a drive that saw Justin Fields return to the field and run the ball, Chris Boswell would kick his 4th field goal to give the Steelers a 12-7 lead. It seemed like every big play that was about to be made, a shoestring tackle would take place. Anytime somebody was looking to take a step into open field, they would get got from behind. I watched it happen to George Pickens. I watched it happen to Najee Harris. I watched it happen to Lamar Jackson countless times throughout this game. They just could not break free and hit the end zone or hit open field. But Justin Tucker would redeem himself and kick a successful field goal to cut the lead to 12-10. Russell Wilson and George Pickens started their show back up with another moon ball and a 37-yard gain that set Boswell up for his 5th of the day, making it 15-10 late in the third. Najee Harris was running so aggressively. The Steelers were gaining yards and draining clock, and when trying to cap off a drive with a touchdown, a fade, they tried to throw a touchdown fade to Darnell Washington. It almost looked like he didn't even jump for it, and maybe he was confused, but either way, it got picked off in that moment. And the Steelers would get it back. An incredibly athletic play by Peyton Wilson following Justice Hill all the way to the ground to rip the ball free before the play could be called dead. Peyton Wilson pulling off this fumble could be the play that saved the game for them. And that's kind of what the staples are of a Ravens and Steelers matchup. This drive gave the Steelers their 6th field goal and an 18-10 lead with 3 minutes left on the clock in the game. But the ball was in the best player in the league's hands. Lamar Jackson, last year's MVP, probably this year's MVP, uses his legs, Isaiah Likely, and Rashad Bateman to move the ball play after play until Justice Hill gets in on the action and puts the Ravens within 30 yards of the end zone. So in this moment, you kind of see Lamar Jackson start to move forward with complete composure, living up to the moment this season time after time, finding an open Zay Flowers in the end zone and the second biggest play of the game, cutting the deficit to 2 points, making this a 2-point conversion, the 2-point conversion would be the play of the game. the Steelers would telegraph the RPO and stuff the try to tie. And it's interesting because here we are at the end of the game, and the Ravens have these RPOs that they kind of look like bootleg play action passes where Lamar Jackson is slowly rolling out to one side of the field or the other and then just kind of dumping up a pass, lobbing a pass right over the defender into the bucket of the receiver. It just did not work out on this try, and I think they could have drawn up something a lot better. Honestly, if you have Derrick Henry and you're 2 yards from the end zone, line up in shotgun and give him the ball. Spread out the defensive line and just let him put his head down and run all the way through. So much action. Ravens playing long ball, have all 3 timeouts, and are trying to get the Steelers to go 3 and out and take the punt home, which is something that we saw last week with the Steelers when Russell Wilson's hard count drew the defender off sides and they ended up extending and winning the game. This is another situation where Mike Tomlin's brain would come out. He runs Najee Harris and Justin Fields into an option set that gains them 10 in 3 plays and seals the game 18-16. The Steelers now, with their first divisional win, will walk away with first place of the AFC North. Russell Wilson is 4-0 as a Steeler. They take their first division win, their 5-game win streak, and the AFC North title into Cleveland now. So they're going to go into Cleveland as the leaders of the AFC North, and the only team in the division besides the Steelers who have beaten the Ravens are the Browns. So that's an interesting thing to look at in this Thursday night game. When I go through the schedule here, one thing that I want to see is what's my game of the week here. We also talked about the Bills and the Chiefs, and the Bills would end up losing that game, unfortunately. I'm sorry. They'd win that game. I had them losing that game. I thought the Chiefs were going to chief and just come through, but the Bills were just dominant in that showcase. This was 100% the game of the week. The Bills and the Chiefs. Just Josh Allen. The end of the game, Josh Allen has a 26-yard run that just showed how much he wanted to put it on his back. I put out an article actually this week about this game because of how fascinating it was. This was the best football game I've seen all season. It's a matchup that's taken place 4 times, and Josh Allen's 3-1 in the regular season. Mahomes is 2-0 in the playoffs, and he'd probably say that's what matters more. Just that play from Josh Allen. He went for a 26-yard run that looked like it was stuffed in the zone coverage very early, but he broke tackle after tackle to make it into the end zone. And the Bills look better than ever, building onto their 9-2 record, extending into their 6-game win streak, and ending the Chiefs' 14-game win streak. Excuse me. Had a nice protein shake before this. What else? I talked about the Bengals and the Chargers and that being a game of the week. Well, I fell asleep. I fell asleep, but I missed an exciting finish to this game because the Chargers went up early, and they played a different style of game than they had been all season. They were primarily running the ball with their backfield of J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards, but that wasn't their formula for this game here. They went over. They almost threw for 300 yards, throwing the ball 36 times with Justin Herbert. He had 2 touchdowns, and so did J.K. Dobbins. He had 2 touchdowns on the ground, including the one in the fourth quarter that would seal the deal on Cincinnati. At halftime, it was 24-6, and the game ended 34-27. The Bengals came out with 2 early third quarter, 2 early second half touchdowns, which would eventually help give them an advantage in this game. Like, hey, we have some thrill here, and it would make it look like a game that the Chargers would historically lose. They've always lost close games for whatever reason. They just can't ever put a game away and finish it. Well, this kind of turns the tide on that era and shows you what Jim Harbaugh brings to the table. He just electrified this team. Ladd McConkey, the rookie out of Georgia, with 6 receptions and 123 yards. Will Dissly with 4 receptions, 80 yards and a tutty. Quentin Johnson had two receptions, but he had a touchdown early there in the game. And honestly, great for him because he was somebody who came out of TCU with such talent his rookie year and just did not get the play that he should have. He didn't really amount to his potential last year. And this year you kind of see more of what he's able to do. So we'll go over this schedule here for next week. And we start with Pittsburgh and Cleveland. This is a big game with not huge implications, but if the Steelers lose, that's good for the Ravens because the divisional matchup will become tougher for the Steelers to win. You have Minnesota taking on Chicago in NFC North showdown with Minnesota favored by 3.5. I think that's because it's an away game, but Minnesota won a very chippy game last week, and the Bears seem to be collapsing inside of themselves. Detroit takes on Indy. Indy just beat the Jets. An interesting thing I heard about the Jets is that Aaron Rodgers took that job just to kind of sabotage Johnson & Johnson. If that's what he's doing, that's the stuff of legends right there, man. Tampa Bay takes on New York. Not much to look at there. Dallas at Washington, also not much to look at. Dallas got trounced by the Texans, who seemed to be struggling going into this game. But Joe Mixon ran all over them in this game, and they would win 34-14. Cooper Rush had like 30 completions, so good for him for having a good game. But it's not going to be enough here. Kansas City and Carolina, you could skip that one. Kansas City gets back on track. They're 10.5-point favorites. Tennessee and Houston. Now, that's a matchup to see because Tennessee has been playing very chippy defense, and they have a good pass rush. So, with Houston having struggle pass setting and blocking for C.J. Stroud, this is a game to look out for because this could be big for Indianapolis. If Indianapolis strings wins together here and Houston strings losses together, especially a divisional loss against Tennessee, you could see the Colts kind of battling for playoff position here. San Francisco plays Green Bay. George Kittle says he'll be back for this game. That's a game to watch. I would definitely put that as a potential game of the week. Arizona plays Seattle in an NFC West that is so wide open right now, anybody can take it. Arizona is currently leading with a 6-4 record. Everybody else is 5-5. Seattle just had a huge win over the 49ers on Sunday, where Geno Smith would go on to lead a game-winning drive and kind of lay out the formula for how do we beat a team that's just led by Brock Purdy. They contained Debo pretty well. George Kittle didn't play, and I think that was the deciding factor in that, is that you see the impact that George Kittle has in the running game when he's not on the field. He is an absolute beast of a blocker. So for him to not be out there, you can see the effect it had on this San Francisco 49ers team. Philadelphia plays the Rams at night. We talked about that already. And Baltimore plays Los Angeles. Baltimore and the Chargers, that's going to be a great game. I think that's something to look at moving forward here. So we'll keep an eye on the Baltimore and Los Angeles game. We'll keep an eye on Arizona and Seattle and San Francisco and Green Bay. The rest are just all pretty much fun games. New England takes on the Dolphins. We're going to lose. I can't believe we dropped that game to the Rams. It seemed like Drake May had a chance for a game-winning drive, but he just couldn't pull off the he couldn't pull off the he couldn't pull off the Jaden Daniels effect, right? So we'll go over the seeding right here. Right now, if the season were to end today, Kansas City would be the first seed in the AFC, and Detroit would be the first seed in the NFC. They absolutely smoked the Jaguars this week. Oh, my God. Once again, no other team has beaten a team by 39 points in the NFL. The Lions have done it 3 times this season. The Lions took on the Jaguars and just there's no words to describe the evisceration that they put on this team. They pounced all over them and showed the Jaguars what a lion can be. I want to find this note, the notes on this team or this game, because it wasn't long. In a game where they're 13.5-point underdogs, the Jags got out to an early field goal. But David Montgomery would get the Lions started with an early touchdown. Jahmyr Gibbs would match him quickly. David Montgomery couldn't stand a tie, gets himself back into the end zone. Then Amon-Ra St. Brown gets one. Jamison Williams takes one 64 yards to the house to open up the second half. Brock Wright goes in on a 6-yard pass, and Amon-Ra again. So they dominate 52-6, but not only was it 52-6, it was a scoregami. That is a score that has never happened in the NFL. So congratulations to the Lions for such a historic dominant run. And the Lions 9-1, the Jags are 2-9, and maybe Mac Jones will start for the rest of the season, because why would you trot Trevor Lawrence out there? You have no shot of making the playoffs. The AFC, if it were to end today, Denver would play Buffalo, which would be a tough, gritty game. Baltimore would play Pittsburgh. Can we please see that? And Los Angeles would play Houston. Great young quarterbacks going at it. These seem to be great matchups. I love that. The Lions would be the number 1 seed in the NFC East. Or the NFC, sorry. And then you have an NFC East matchup in the first round. Washington taking on Philadelphia. Then you have Green Bay taking on Arizona. That's another exciting game to watch. And Minnesota taking on the Falcons. Wow, I wish the season ended today. These would all be great games to watch. Nonetheless, we got a great game to watch tonight, and we got a week full of great games. So after 1 o'clock, put on your TVs to Fox or CBS and check those games out. Pretty much the whole late slate is something to watch. There's something to see. And next week, when it's all wrapped up and said and done, we will go over the season leaders thus far. Right before Thanksgiving, we'll get into who's leading in what categories, who's the passing leader, who's the rushing leader, who has the most interceptions in the league. And we'll start to look at our MVP votes because right here on Bookmarks with Bump and Ballin' with Bump, we will give out an MVB, the most valuable bumper. This is a player who bumps his team up to the next level and bumps up the win column. As for me, I'm just happy you're all here. I recorded a podcast last night with Jur, so check out the episode of the Jurcast coming out that has me on it. It gave a great interview, and it was really just to sit down and talk. It was great to have a conversation with the boy. He's doing a lot of creative things, really getting my engine firing. He's doing a lot of videos, music videos. Check out Jurcast when you're on YouTube. If you look up Jurcast, Jurcast, you'll find his music videos and the other creative content that he's been getting into. I love the Jur show. For whatever reason, Chris D'Elia and Matt D'Elia love him and put him on Lifeline all the time. For whatever reason, it's because he's got a personality. This kid's a great kid, a great creator. So when that podcast drops, I'll put out the link everywhere, all over the place. For me, you can find me on Twitter at BumpyBetSlips. You can hit the Gmail bookmarkswbump@gmail.com for any questions or inquiries or any threads you want to send me. Holler at me there. I'm on YouTube. I'm on Apple Music. I'm on Spotify. I'm on, what else? Amazon Music and iHeartRadio. Any platform that you enjoy a podcast, please subscribe, leave a rating, leave a comment, leave a like, show some love. As always, it's all love. And thank you for listening to Bookmarks with Bump. God bless.
Show you what it's worth. Money to the ceiling. I started at the dirt. I've been riding, wave like I surf. I've been leaning in and out of work. I could show you what it's worth. Money to the ceiling. I started at the dirt. I'm a night rider. Every time that I go out best midnight, I swear I get higher. Swear I gotta get higher now. I'm a night rider. Every time that I give what I got, I supply that fire. I supply that fire, man. I'm a night rider. Every time that I go up, it's midnight, I swear I get higher. Swear I gotta get higher now. I'm a night rider. Every time that I go up, it's midnight, I swear I get higher. Swear I gotta get higher, man.